Obviously, I've been talking about retiring for several years now. I wanted to get into sort of another stage of life where I'm not in the film business anymore and I don't have to run a corporation. And it occurred to me one day that the perfect person to take over the company was Kathy. It's just such a perfect fit. And I felt that I really wanted to put the company somewhere in a larger entity which would protect it. Disney is a huge corporation. They have all kinds of capabilities and facilities, so that there's a lot of strength that is gained by this. The great thing about Disney, again, as we were saying before, is that, it's between the parks and all the things they've got going. It's great that we have a chance probably to expand that, and there's lots and lots of opportunities at Disney that we wouldn't have at any other studio.
There's huge opportunity, given the tremendous success that Disney's had with Marvel and with Pixar, and now adding Lucasfilm to that. I think we couldn't be at a better home.
When I first made Star Wars, everybody in Hollywood said, well, this is a movie Disney should have made.
Disney defines family entertainment, and in many ways, it's the best company possible to take Star Wars into the future.
And speaking of, we have other big news.
Well, I always said I wasn't going to do any more, and that's true, because I'm not going to do any more. But that doesn't mean I'm unwilling to turn it over to Kathy to do more. Mm-hmm. I have story treatments of 7, 8, and 9, and a bunch of other movies, and obviously we have hundreds of books and comics and everything you could possibly imagine. So, I sort of moved that treasure trove of stories and various things to Kathy, and I have complete confidence that she's going to take them and make great movies.
We are absolutely going to make Star Wars movies, and we're in the midst of the really fun part of the process, which is we're sitting down with a couple of writers and we're starting to discuss ideas and we're starting to talk about what those stories might be. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to be entirely on my own, because it's important that he at least continue to be the little guardian angel on my shoulder, helping me do this.
They're finishing the hologram now. Don't worry.
Yeah. My Yoda has to be there.
I'm doing this so that the films will have a longer life, and so that more fans and people can enjoy them into the future. It's a very big universe I've created, and there's a lot of stories that are sitting in there.
The main thing is to protect these characters, make sure that they still continue to live in the way that you created them, and that the universe of Star Wars continues to grow.
I get to be a fan now, which is what I was saying before, and I sort of look forward to it. It's a lot more fun, actually, than actually having to go out in the mud and
you could actually blog about what we're doing and how we're messing things up.
No. I just say, gosh, they're out in the snow and it's cold, and hopefully it'll be an inspiring package of entertainment that it has always been well into the future.
What can you tell us about the new Star Wars films?
Absolutely nothing.
Why are you asking questions that we can't answer?
Well, we can certainly say that we're absolutely going to make movies. Mm-hmm. We're sitting down with a couple of writers and we're starting to discuss ideas and we're starting to talk about what those stories might be. And we're recognizing that I think they could be pretty fun and pretty great.
And what do you see your role as creative consultant? What does that mean?
I just said that I would back her up and I would be there if, and especially helping with the script and making sure the script there's a lot of blank spots in the story treatment that hopefully we can fill in.
I think the incredible thing about George is, this is not like a series of books like Harry Potter where you've already got a template of what the stories might be. These are original stories and original ideas that come out of a world that essentially is in George's head. So the beauty of the collaboration that can continue is, as we work our way through these scripts, if we're sitting and saying, I wonder if this character can do that, or does this make sense within the rules of Star Wars? That really, he's the keeper of the flame when it comes to that.
It's the same thing with the first 3 films. That's all my job is to be the keeper of the flame.
It's really exciting because I think there's a whole generation of filmmakers that have been inspired by George and Star Wars, and they're absolutely thrilled, excited, and daunted at the prospect of possibly being able to step in and carry the mantle of making these movies. And I think that's exciting too, is that those new filmmakers coming into this franchise and being able to take all the incredible ideas and characters and places that we can go within this universe offer incredible opportunities.
What are you looking for in a director?
Enthusiasm, obviously, having a sense of how to tell stories within complex worlds like this. There are many people who sprang to mind with writers and directors that I've worked with in the past that I'm really excited to try to bring into the fold on this. I think we have a unique opportunity to go after some incredibly talented people. It's not going to be people who don't already have some affinity for Star Wars, probably. It's going to be somebody who really appreciates what Star Wars meant to them and is excited to dive in and be a part of this. I think that's the thing that I think will become immediately apparent, are the directors who walk into the room and say, I can't wait to be a part of this.
Well, and since you brought it up, I suggest that everybody send their resume to you, not to Kathy. She doesn't have time.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty long list.
Do you remember the first time that you met?
I can remember meeting her when I was at Warner Brothers, and she was John Milius's assistant, which was quite a job. Apocalypse was shot at the same time as Star Wars, so
yeah, because that's what John
yeah.
was doing.
Yeah, so it was the very beginning of Star Wars.
Yeah, that's right. He was already kind of a big star.
Yeah.
Star Wars had already happened.
Had it? I don't
Yeah.
think so. Had
Yeah, it had happened.
I thought that was during the THX years, where she was always been standing right there in front of me. Because I've been, brooding over who am I going to get and what am I going to do? How am I going to make this work? And ruminating on it endlessly. And then I sort of almost immediately got up. She was in New York, I was in New York, and I just said, hey, let's go have lunch. And I popped the question, and she said yes, and I said, well, you're going to have to divorce Frank first. But
He just changed the name of the company
yeah,
from Kennedy Marshall to Marshall Kennedy.
right.
Took care of that.
So Kathy, tell us about when he first told you that he wanted you to take over the films.
Well, it's as George said, he called me up when I was in New York and he said, let's go have lunch. And I thought we were going to sit around and talk about how the kids were and catch up and that kind of thing. And then halfway through lunch, he said to me, I've been thinking about retiring, and I don't know if you've heard or talked much about that, but he said, I'd really like you to give some thought to stepping in and taking over the company. And I was, needless to say, I was pretty stunned that that's what we were having lunch about. So I had to digest that. But then it was interesting because I answered you pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I said, I would be really interested in doing that. And I kind of surprised myself saying that, because there had been opportunities in my past where I could have stepped into something like this, not like this, but certainly jobs that took me outside of just the filmmaking process.
Well, it's like, for me, I didn't know what she was going to say, because she had her own very successful career, her own successful company with her husband, making big movies. She had a very full career, and I didn't know that she wanted to have a change of life like I did.
I just love the challenge that it suggested.
What advice do you have for Kathy?
Good luck. No, I mean, I don't have to give Kathy advice. She knows what to do. She knows better than I do. So, I mean, that's the best part about this, is it's not somebody who I have to explain anything to. I mean, I've worked with Kathy for so many years. I mean, it is, well,
It's
at
been
least
a long
like
time.
35 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, in close producing together, just working together, and as friends, and, it's a great relationship. And it's just such a perfect fit, because she actually has all the qualities that are necessary to run a company like this that, make it great.
What is it about Star Wars that it's lasted for 35 years and it's just as strong as ever?
Why did everybody ask that? If anybody knew what the answer was, they'd do it.
Yeah. I think it is hard with things like that for anybody to answer, because when something becomes a cultural phenomenon, especially when you're talking about people who grew up with something that affected them, one of the things that's interesting about it is their perspective on that changes. Whatever it is they took with them when they saw it when they were 7 is going to be different than somebody who saw it when they were 20, as opposed to, you know, older or younger. And I think that it's become a part of popular culture. It's become a part of the vernacular. It's got ideas in it that I think are very bonding culturally, because they're shared by a generation. You don't ever really know why that happens. That, I think, is why the word that explains it is phenomenon, because it is a collision of things that you can't necessarily explain, that George created, that spoke to people. They related to it in some way. It hits something deeper than themselves.
Well, it's based on human behavior, human psychology, you know, mythology, which is the sort of archaeology of human behavior and thinking. And since it has those motifs, it is very universal, and everybody can relate to it.
And there's so many themes of good and evil, and friendship, and betrayal, and all of those things. Why are those things important?
The whole notion of dark and light, and the idea that everybody recognizes the choices they make throughout their life can be influenced, even within themselves, to that degree, that I think that that's fascinating. I mean, we're used to seeing stories about heroes where it all ends up being great in the end. Well, that isn't necessarily life. And I think that, again, that's what George explored with the dark and light of aspirational ideas.
It's about good and evil in us, as well as our institutions. So, and the idea that some of us think we're really great people, but in the real world we're not. We're terrible people.
Or you can make bad choices.
Well, you make bad choices, but you run your life in a very selfish way, and you think you're doing good when you're actually not. And at the same time, it's you know, how do democracies turn back into dictatorships? Why do people who have the power to have the freedom and everything turn it over to somebody who's going to take it all away from them? It's happened through history forever and ever, and all Star Wars is a way of updating that idea to say, watch out, because there are people out there who don't play by the rules, and if you're not careful, you're going to lose all your freedom. And at the same time, those people who may not play by the rules because they're selfish and greedy turn themselves into evil people who don't care about other people.
There you go. The essence
Playing
of Star
out today.
Wars.
One of the themes of Star Wars is, of course, letting go. And I just wanted to sort of feel how you're feeling right now in passing the torch.
Well, like anything in life, you know, you only go through these kinds of stages. There's just a small number of these kinds of stages in life. Retirement is, you know, filled with a lot of sadness, and at the same time filled with a lot of excitement and exhilaration. I'm starting a new life. And, you know, it's sort of a mix of those kinds of things. It's like when you leave home to go to college. You know, there's like when you get married. You know, there are things that, you know, it's like scary and fun, and you know, I'm looking forward to trying new things.
Kathy, what are you most excited about?
You know, I would say the same thing. It's funny, I find that it's been interesting with George and I, because we've been talking about this for several weeks now, as I've started to get to meet people and get to know how the company works and whatnot. And usually at the end of my phone calls with him, I end up saying, so how are you feeling about this? Because he's going through a transition out of the company. I'm going through a transition out of just producing movies into running this company. And so all of my emotions are caught up in new beginnings as he's segueing out. So it is a thing that I think the two of us constantly kind of check in with one another to see, okay, where's the balance? Is the balance happening here? Because you know, I have a tremendous amount to learn from George. There's things that that I want to preserve within the spirit of this company, and as it moves into Disney, I think it's vitally important to anything we create, that we hold on to the spirit of what started all of this. So I would say that that's really important to me.